Good afternoon to some of you. Good evening to some of you. Welcome to our ESS, or Entrepreneurial Strategy Series. We're excited to have you all here. First of all, my name is David Postalski. I'm a partner at Gearhart Law, and I'm all about education empowerment, and that's the reason why we've been putting on this series for almost 2 years straight now. And so if any of you have ideas for topics or anything like that, reach out to us and we can try to build something around you. But mostly what we're trying to do is educate and empower all of you as entrepreneurs to kind of be the best that you can be. So Jacqueline Park, if you can please introduce yourself, and the spotlight is yours. And we'll get to Marcy and Kathy for sure later, and then we'll have an interactive chat for all of us. But please, Jackie, take it away.
Yes, thank you. And I was going to volunteer to go first, so it worked out beautifully. Jackie, nice to meet everyone. Thank you for taking the time. I know it sounds like everyone's across multiple time zones. Thank you for being here, because it takes a lot to show up. I am a executive in the entertainment industry, so I still have my corporate job. Alongside that, I have my second job, which is a life and leadership coach. That is intentional for the moment. And in the life and leadership coaching business, I am here to awaken our greater power. Each and every one of you guys are powerful. And I think in working in the corporate landscape, it was very apparent to me that sometimes we get diminished and we get disempowered. And so OMO, which is the name of my company, was started with the vision to awaken our greater power. I graduated way back with a degree in psychology and an emphasis in law. So being in the corporate landscape, doing real estate, design, furniture, all sorts of other fun stuff, workspace experience, working with employees, is very different than what I graduated with. And then starting the life and leadership coaching business is yet another part of my journey. I'm excited to be here and share more about what I know and what I can help with, hear more about you guys as well. And on my spare time, I have a husband, a wonderful husband, fun teenage daughter, and 2 dogs. And we do a lot of traveling, a lot of movie watching, and just enjoy life together. So looking forward to this. Thank you, David and Alicia for putting this together and hosting us. And Marcy and Kathy, looking forward to partnering with you on this.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, what about, let's hear from Marcy. Marcy, you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay. David, do you, in addition to introducing ourselves, do you want us to get into some of the substance of our content?
100%. You can totally do that. And Jackie, if we have to come back to you for that, we can do that as well. But yeah, go for it, please. The spotlight's on you for a minute. Go for more than a minute, for like 10 to 15 minutes if you want it, you know?
Okay. So starting around age 6, I lost the ability to speak. And I noticed those all around me not choosing how they showed up. For example, in the 4 square behind our school, where there's someone in the 8 square slamming the ball out on, new people coming into the game, there's a choice being made. And that person often showed up as a bully. And then there were people in line who were going into the game who were afraid that they would be slammed out. And the way that they showed up, the countenance of their bodies signaled to the bully in the 8 square, is this someone they can slam out, or is this really someone who's going to stand up for themselves and try to get the ball and slam it back? So I saw people showing up as bullies and cowards. I saw people not choosing how they showed up. And all the while I was struggling, knowing how I wanted to show up and yet not being able to. So you fast forward now, 45 plus years with a background on Wall Street, strategy management, consulting in Silicon Valley, helping companies around the world like HP beat IBM in every industry group in every sector. I've developed a model essentially that explains what I believe is the way that nature designed us to show up. And it's been tested and now proven through successful projects with big corporate tech leaders around the globe, over those 20 years. And, effectively, what everyone shares in these global surveys that I started back in 1999 is that most of us are just showing up. We're not consciously choosing how we're showing up. This is exactly what I observed when I was a child, and it's exactly what the surveys bear out. And it's exactly what people tell me, as a crowd gathers round, like the moment there's a discussion that people can hear, kind of heads turn. Most recently, this happened to me in Connecticut last Saturday night. I'm with my daughter, and there's an event where the stores are giving out, wine and cookies and things. And you start to chat, and the next thing I know, within 2 minutes, there's kind of a focus group going on with 15 people talking about showing up. So this is how things have evolved. There's a second book that's about to come out about this, how we choose to show up. My editor was actually George Bush's former chief speechwriter and head of communications. And the reason for that is because our votes show up, our government shows up, our businesses show up, how we relate to starting a business shows up, everything shows up. It's in essence the invisible system that's existing all around us. And the moment that we start to recognize the choice that we have and what it means, we can then step into showing up far closer to how we would choose. So I'm going to put a structure around this so that we have something tangible to speak about. Okay. Quality levels are inherent in everything. So let's just use a simple one. 1, 2, 3. Level 1, you can call being barely there. You're sick, you're checked out, you're disengaged, maybe for good reason. I'm not saying we all choose this, but there's also anxiety and depression and all sorts of things that can lead us to just be done. And that's barely there, level 1. Level 2 is what my research shows 80% of us do 80% of the time. And this is just showing up. So when you woke up and you kind of went through the motions, or when you're going into a meeting and you're just kind of going from one thing to the next, but we're subtly occupied in the back of our minds, and our nervous systems aren't quite calm. So we're kind of flitting on the surface, and there's a resonance that's going on, but it's more of a zzz than a ah. When that happens, we're largely in the left hemisphere of our brain. It's this grab and get mode that helps us get things done and stay on task. And it's what fed us when we were evolving out in the savannah. We had to, see, that's a rabbit, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to kill it, I'm going to eat it. So there's this grab and get mode. And that's very much what our society puts us in, as we're rushed and move from one thing to the next and don't really have time to reflect and do all those wonderful things that we need to do, right? To journal and to sleep enough and to get nutrition and maybe to meditate, right? We aren't always in that mode. So we're often just showing up, which is a very left hemispheric focused thing. I can get into neuroscience more at another time. But in essence, when we are able to reset, we're able to open up an expansive attention system. We have 2 attention systems. This is the one that kept us alive, right? We needed to do 2 things as we evolved, and all mammals have a dual-brained attention system, one that fed us and one that kept us alive. And this is the one that you're using right now when you're reading the language of my body, when you're hearing the intensity of belief and heartfelt openness and compassion with which I'm saying this. This is the part of us that sways to the music. This is the part of us that understands poetry and that feels love. And we very much need both. And what's happened in our society, as I think no one is going to disagree with, we're very much in this just showing up, get it done, somewhat stressed mode, a little bit too often. And we're less in our level 3 truly showing up mode that switches back to our right hemisphere of, wow, I can hear this person and they're saying something new. This isn't the same conversation with my teenage daughter that I'm used to having, or with that employee who's kind of not quite with me, or with that, partner who kind of doesn't seem to connect with me in the way that we used to, right? So level 3 truly showing up essentially helps us to use both of the attention systems of our brain. And it helps us relate human to human so that we can have more support and connectedness and a feeling of meaning in our lives. We can actually create and build the business that we're trying to build because people feel who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. So there's a simple model around it. I'll just say a few more sentences and then pass the torch. Essentially, we were designed in 3 roles. We're selves, members of situations like this, and members of something larger. You can call it society. So the 3 skills that we need to truly show up more often: grounding in ourselves, readiness for our situations, and connectedness, or there's actually a word that we trademarked, David, thank you, all-telligence, which is a symbiotic and reciprocal way of attending to the world. And it's the one that we were designed to show up with. So self-grounding, situational readiness, societal all-telligence. Those are the 3 ways that we show, or those are the ways in which we're always showing up. All of us are always showing up with some level of quality in each one of those 3. And when David sends out this podcast, there's going to be a model that I'm going to share, but you can also just be in touch. It's on my website. It's just a model of the 3 roles of how we show up. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Marcy. Appreciate that. We'll come back to you for sure. If anybody has any questions or anything, just put them in the chat, but we'll have a live question and answer. I'm going to go back to Jackie. Jackie is in California, so like Yasna, she's probably just having her first cup of coffee. But Jackie, we're coming back to you because we wanted you to spend a little bit more time on kind of OMO, if you can, before we get to Kathy. So please take it away again.
Yeah, and thank you. It is, yes, it's I still haven't had my coffee. Having a family puts you in a tailspin sometimes because you have things planned and then things come out of left field. So I appreciate you coming back to me. A little bit more about OMO. It was I've been loosely coaching for many, many years, and I think it was nicely timed. I always believe in divine timing, and Marcy sharing everything she just did brings me back to the inception of OMO and the authenticity of showing up for our community, our world, right? And the idea of doing all the self stuff in order to have the tools to be able to deal with the situation, to then support in your own authentic self for the world, right? So I 1000% love that you've put it into a model, Marcy, and that it's something so tangible to discuss. And so it was beautifully timed that it came back to me so that I can clearly articulate OMO a little better. But OMO's vision of awakening our greater power comes with work, right? And it comes with the work you do and the work you choose to do, and the desire to want to do the work, to show up differently for yourself, for everyone around you. And the mission is to be happy and to be whole in everything you're doing. That's, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, I left the corporate world, or the corporate world sucks. Like, I continue to choose to stay in the corporate world because I have found my peace and my authenticity and my purpose for it, right? And so almost true vision is, as we awaken your greater power, really making sure that it's feeling authentic and true to you. And we do these through a host of one-on-one sessions. I use as a baseline a tool called Human Design. Some are familiar, some are, you can Google it, all sorts of stuff comes up. I will say, it's not a cult, because sometimes that shows up. I got certified in BG5, which is the professional version of human design. The information is all the same, but the language is a little more practical, and it allows us to really dive into, we are born, and this is like, if any of you guys have taken Myers-Briggs or Emergenetics or any of the personality tools, this is yet just another tool. It doesn't tell you this is who you are. It tells us information that is intended to support you. So we use that as a baseline, and some of that information that comes through is what best environments are for you, whether that's alone or partnership, small group, large group. And not to say that when something's bad for you, you can't be in it, but it gives us awareness on what to do when that situation shows up. It gives us information on how to best make decisions for yourself. So there's just a whole host of information we use. I use that as a baseline to support you, alongside many other tools that I have chosen to take on, such as HeartMath, and really making sure that we're in tune with our bodies. That is number one in the work that Omo does with an individual. What I do with you as an individual is the idea of how do we really feel into our bodies and address that first and foremost. A lot of times we've been programmed or taught to just be very cerebral and very, very mind driven. And so, yeah, that's a little bit more on Omo and the work I do with individuals. Thank you, David, for passing that back to me.
Amazing. Thank you, Jackie. We appreciate it. We'll probably get into a little bit more details about Omo too, I'm sure later. But let's hear from Kathy. Kathy Caprino, how are you?
Hello, my gosh, what acts to follow? How fascinating. And David, thank you for doing this. I really so appreciate it. And it's so great to see all of you. Let me tell you a little bit about the business. And because you're all entrepreneurs or wanting to join that arena, I would love to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey so far, but I'm going to keep it succinct. My company is called now Kathy Caprino LLC, and there was an even entrepreneurial journey there. It was Elia Communications, which was named after my daughter, Julia, my son, Elliot, and the French word elle, which means she. And it's interesting. I'm sure we'll get into a little branding and marketing, but what became clear is that actually how I envisioned the company has really shifted over time. We can get into that later, but I am a career and leadership coach, author, speaker, trainer. I'm a senior Forbes contributor, so writing is a big part of what I do. I have a podcast called Finding Brave, which David helped me name and secure that name, and what a journey that was when the name that I originally thought, Brave Up, was taken. 3 months before I built the whole website, Brave Up, there it was. Someone had it. I was gutted. Anyway, I'm sure you've all been through this, but thank goodness some wonderful friend of mine said, what about Finding Brave? And, entrepreneurial lesson number one, we have to be resilient. We have to pivot. We have to go with what the world is delivering to us and not break us against a particular outcome. But there it is, Finding Brave. And now we've hit over 500,000 downloads. It's such a joy to do. I'm also a trainer. And my sweet spot is helping women thrive. But I will have to say, and this is another lesson in the entrepreneurial journey, in my podcast, I started interviewing men who were in the arena of reinventing masculinity. And literally my head exploded every interview. And here I am at this moment. So it's 16 years of doing this work. And before that, I was a corporate VP in product management and publishing and research and product development. And then after a really brutal layoff after 9/11, where in the last 2 years of my corporate life, I faced sexual harassment, gender bias, gender discrimination, toxic colleagues, narcissistic bosses, chronic illness and infection of my trachea, of all things. Who's ever heard of it? Tracheitis. Every 3 months, terribly ill for 4 years, zero work-life balance. My kids were very little then. Now they're 26 and 29. But another lesson in the journey is don't wait too long to make the change you need to. And I did wait too long, and then I was laid off in a way that was brutal. And I basically snapped and said, I've had it with what is going on here. I don't understand it. I don't understand what's happened, but I will never allow myself to feel like this again. And I became a marriage and family therapist, which there's so many similarities among us speakers, aren't there? The journeys we've gone on, but that training was life-changing, to sit with clients going through rape, incest, pedophilia, suicidality, drug addiction, attempted murder, good grief. So that was, I would say, the most groundbreaking, transformative work, but it led me to understand that it's coaching and leadership training that is really in my heart. And there's another funny story, if I could share it. I call it the pendulum effect, where sometimes we stay too long in a painful situation or career, and then we want to run we're broken down in it. We want to run to the opposite ends of the earth. And that might happen in your entrepreneurial journey as well. That typically doesn't work out well, because you're running. You haven't healed the problem, and the problem is going to continue to appear in your business partnerships, in what you develop. So what I've learned now is I'm back to the middle. I'm back to that balance, that I'm leveraging everything I've been to be of help in ways that I want to both men and women. So how we do that, I have 2 courses that I deliver, the Amazing Career Project and Most Powerful You. And we're going to be talking about it. I'm sure what the world makes us do as entrepreneurs is pivot sometimes. And I have been B2C, business to consumer. So women would come to me and pay out of pocket. But COVID changed that. And I know that's a topic, David, we're going to be talking about. So now I'm doing a little pivoting B2B, where I am coming into organizations and taking that course and training it live. And I'm so excited that when I have 2 books as well, and the training is based on my latest book, The Most Powerful You, which is about the 7 damaging power gaps that negatively impact 98% of professional women I've studied and 90% of men. And when you have these gaps, you cannot thrive in your work. You might look successful, you might make good money, but you're not thriving internally. So another thing I'm hearing here is that every one of us has a particular lens of how we see the world and how we want to leverage our talents. Every one of you who shared what you're doing, from biomedical work to, products for any arena you can think of, we're leveraging what we love and passionate about and what we care about. And I think that makes us the happiest. But we do have to know how to market and get the word out and find ambassadors and people who love us. But what I did want to share was, after being laid off and finding therapy and finding this work, I can honestly say, first of all, it is wonderful to be in the place you are meant to be. But part of that is that you have to keep evolving, because that place where you want to be changes over and over and over. And the more resilient we can be, I've seen that, the happier and the more successful we'll be. I hope that explains it. That was a lot.
That was a lot, but that was good. By the way, you all 3 have great voices too. I think that needs to go without saying, which is probably why you do a lot of speaking. Let's stick on Kathy for a minute, and we'll come back to could we have you now? Let's talk about COVID. I think I think in terms of like the biggest pivot that the world has gone through, and possibly some people on this phone, on this call, I kind of want, maybe you can share your kind of experience of like kind of what has COVID, kind of taught you, and if you're still kind of learning from it, and kind of how it has changed your business life, personal life, whatever it might have changed. I think it's an important. I think I think we kind of stopped talking about that, but I think it's important that we kind of bring it back a little bit, at least in this kind of setting. So maybe you can kind of share some of those experiences.
Yeah, I'd love to. I look back on the trajectory, and I seem to launch things right in the middle of the biggest vortex of flux in the world. So Why is that? My first book came out in 2008, largest financial crisis. We were talking about Obama and Sarah Palin. Nobody cared about women's issues. It wasn't in the national conversation. I'm like, what am I doing? 2008. Then I launched my second book, 2020, in the middle of COVID. But, because my book is about power gaps and fear and lack of confidence and imposter syndrome. Funny that I said empower syndrome. It was all wonderfully potent. But what I will say, and this is not to be doom and gloom. I mean, I'm sure half of us on the call have been through something pretty devastating in their business. Every way I make money was dramatically changed. So coaching and what people could pay and what they were focused on. So coaching, organizational training, speaking, the writing, again, even how I make money writing, that dramatically changed. So I will say that I made the mistake of saying, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. It didn't get better in that particular way. So for instance, if people are paying me directly, they have much less disposable income now, typically after COVID. Things have changed and they're very careful about it. And I think it's also changed how we view what our future is going to be. I mean, it happened in 9/11, and I think it happens when war happens. We begin to think of our own mortality. And that changes what we're going to invest in, what we're going to focus on. So everything changed for my business. I would say the upside is that I realized the B2C was only going to allow me a limited amount of impact. If I can get my work into businesses and organizations, and my core goal is impact. So I've always said, if I can help one professional man or woman who's a leader shift and empower and change and grow and speak differently and lead differently, they're going to impact 10,000 other people. And so COVID forced me to do the B2B more, and I'm so grateful. A division of the UN sponsored my program in the very beginning. And I thought, if a division of the UN is going to do this, wow, the sky's the limit. So I would say it was the big shift there, not just B2C, but B2B. What else? I think the way we reach people has to change. I know you're going to talk about marketing and social media, but I think the way we get exposure, and also, finally, one thing that's dramatically changed. So I'm 63 and I'm proud of it. That's why I share it. Oh my goodness. Everything has changed. For instance, our human attention span has been shrunk. So even what we put out, it used to be you could put out a 30-minute, video and people will watch it. They won't even watch more than 3 seconds typically. So how we share our information and attract people, it's all changed so much. So we either break ourselves against it and bloody ourselves, or we say, what can this pivot do for me that actually my heart wants to do? I don't think we should pursue things that we feel sick about doing. I think we find a way to make that change something that's actually going to help us be more and be more impactful and helpful. Did that answer the question, David?
Yeah, totally answered the question. What about you, Jackie? What any thoughts on this topic, please?
Yeah. And again, I love the timing of how you're addressing this, David, but it's probably because you have a lot of info on all of us. Kathy, I did get during the pandemic. So COVID for me, I think call it the work, call it who I am, whatever we want to call it. There's always been an innate ability for me to see silver linings, right? Like COVID was shitty. Sorry, excuse my language, but it was crappy. I lost family. It was horrible, and yet we as a family were able to see the silver linings, and I as an individual was able to do the same. that pause and that pivot, which I also very much stand by, allowed me to trademark OMO, create OMO, trademark OMO, and get it launched in a way that was more marketable, and I could sell and pull in more clients, and I had the time, right? Like I had to sit and really be like, oh, I can truly prioritize this now, right? And choose to take all this time and do what, right? Like, and that was the question. What do I do with all this time now? And so there were a lot of really fun projects we got to do. We got to go live in various places in Canada to test it out. My husband is Canadian, and so we have a vision of moving to Canada in a few years, and so we got to test that out. It was I think the 2020 to 2021 journey for us was like tiny homes along the way, because we wanted to be cautious and not interact with people and be safe and get to Vancouver and stay there for a few months. But it was an opportunity, and I think something that I truly believe in is perspective, and how we choose to view things, how we choose to listen to things, and then what we then do with that. And Kathy, something you said earlier in terms of the who you get to work with, and then the impact. I did get certified in multipliers, and Liz Wiseman has 2 books, Multipliers and Impact Players. They're wonderful books because they're tangible tools that says, okay, sometimes I accidentally diminish and I want to multiply. And as leaders, and I share this with my clients and with family and with anybody who will listen, and it's the idea that you don't need a VP title, because at a coordinator title, you're still a leader, and you can still multiply. And that is super important in the messaging. And I think COVID definitely allowed me the space to expand, and then who knows from here. And we definitely, all we have is right now, right? Like anything in the future is imagination. Who knows what's going to happen? And so if all we have is right now, then what? And I think for COVID, it was definitely that idea that Kathy highlighted of I mean, every single one of us, right? Like I can't imagine, I can empathize, but like can't imagine to the magnitude of everyone's fears of what each and every one of us went through in terms of mortality, and the thought of that and the discussion of it. And I mean, we had freak out moments of, don't bring that in, don't touch that, like, what did you wipe it down? And it gets intense. And so I think COVID definitely highlighted the importance of what is it that you really want in your life, right? Like I've always been a leader of work-life balance, and please make sure you take care of yourself and your family comes first. And I'm seeing that become more and more a reality. It was always a desire of mine that leaders at every level lead with heart. And yeah, and I think that COVID has allowed us to be more empathetic, more compassionate, more real, right? The ability to see in each other's videos the dogs and the family and the all of it. And it's the idea that previously, and we're continuing to change this paradigm of having to separate my professional and personal self, is now becoming one, which to me is like music to my ears and fills my heart. Is that this idea that we get to authentically show up as one, no matter what we choose to do. And to me, that is important, because that authenticity is important. And the honesty. So during COVID, being able to create this coaching business and being honest with my boss, my team, HR, whoever needed to hear like, hey, I'm also doing this work and I want to make sure there's no conflict. And it in turn was like, wow, we have this at our fingertips. Let's use you internal, right? And let's leverage you in changing and transforming internally the company. So, it's the ability, I think COVID gave me the ability to kind of distill and brush away a lot of the fear and be able to show up differently and really tackle that idea of fear. So
Amazing. Thank you, Jackie. I ditto on so much of what you said. I agree. And you kind of rattled off some of the great characteristics of what kind of make an entrepreneur successful as well. Marcy, what about you? You're on mute.
Thank you. Anything that smacks us the way that COVID did is kind of the big show up moment, I think for many of us of our lives. And it confronts us with the collective nature of our identity because we were all in this together. So the question, right? So we knew how society was showing up for us, which is afraid, shut down, untrusting. And our bodies and our minds and how we even woke up and went to sleep was showing up in a reciprocal way, scared, not trusting. So the question really is, how are we choosing to show up to, with, and for all of this? For many of us, it confronted us with, or what that question became is, how do I want to invest my moments? What do I want to do with my time? What's true to myself, right? And that's why I think we had, one of the greatest spikes of new company formations in the history of the, world in those 2 years. And I think it's still growing because we're no longer willing to subserviate who we truly are to what society has forced on us, right? I mean, showing up is very much of a contact sport, right? We need to exist within society, and society in many ways defines us. But there are choices that we're making each moment about, am I going to let the fear stop us? So for everyone, for example, who's trying to start a business or is midway through starting a business, there is an endless need for more resources than we have. And there's fear of maybe overspending to an extent where, the cash flow out and the cash flow in don't quite merge. And that's actually the number one reason that new businesses fail, right? So there's a fear there. So how do we relate to that fear, right? And what the truth about showing up actually suggests to us is that we look at each one of our 3 roles. So grounding in ourselves. Where's the fear? What's it truly about? Readiness for the situation of, do I engage this provider now? Do I buy the inventory now? Do I partner with this person now or this business now where there's, a lot of upfront cost? Readiness is existential. And the way that I define it is about how you come together and attune to the moments such that you're creating kind of a reciprocal trust and care. And I talk about what planning truly is and what preparing truly is. Because the thing about readiness is that the moment we haven't shown up the way we wanted to, it doesn't return often as a redo. It returns as a what now? Right? When you've got employees and you can't pay them for a while, or someone who you really, really want to bring on needs to take another job and says, look, I've got to accept this other thing so that I get paid. I want to work with you, but we really aren't sure that the business is at a stage where you can support me, right? The third thing, the global societal nature of COVID forced us to reckon with how everyone is impacting each other, and that's in our societal role. So, the work of Nicholas Christakis, who's up at Yale, showed that every moment when we show up, it goes 3 levels deep. So everyone on this call is actually 45% more likely to do what we do. So to think, to feel, and to behave the way that others are. Then we each go to the other people in the room or in our homes. So our family is now 25% more likely to interact the way that we are. And then that goes the next level out. So let's say our colleague's partner's daughter is 10% more likely to do what we're doing, to think, feel, and act this way, because it goes 3 levels deep. So it goes 45%, then 25%, and then 10. And he shows this. I mean, it's measured in really objective things, whether you vote, whether you get to the gym, how much alcohol you consume, body size flows, optimism flows, likelihood of doing kind acts, like all of these things flow through. So we all still are, but we're in a less triggered state now. So really the question that I would pose to everybody, given that we've all been through this kind of global traumatizing thing, is how can we collectively heal from that by making the choices about showing up to ourselves, to our situations, and to our kind of societal role, which is to each other.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcy. I'm going to stick on you. I think you all shared some kind of insightful kind of situational aspects about COVID. I want to talk to you. So most of the people on this call are entrepreneurs like yourselves. Everybody is looking for usually the best way to kind of market themselves, right? You all do a great job at marketing. We could always all do a better job at marketing, I think.
Yes.
But maybe you can share some of your kind of best practices, what you did do, what you don't do, what you did wrong in terms of marketing. I think that's something that I think most people on this call struggle with. How do you market yourself? How do you market your business? I don't talk to people. Can't relate to people. Like, just if you can share your experiences, I think all of you will be able to share your experiences. But we'll start with you. Marcy.
Thank you, David. Yeah, so I'm a strategy management consultant, and I've been doing this work for 25 plus years. And I will tell you, the way that I've been able to help businesses grow like 30+% in 18 months is from the outside in. Essentially, you understand, what are people trying to achieve that is an unmet need, that's highly important and underserved. I'll translate this through an example. So the largest privately owned jeweler on the planet, so it's a multi-billion-dollar business, was trying to grow their engagement ring business, and they were having a lot of trouble. And we did a lot of research, and we asked people to prioritize the most important and least well-served need that they had, and specific statements were tested, and I call these jobs to be done. And one of the statements that we tested is, I knew I was ready to get engaged. And that was by far and above the most important and least well-met need of everyone who's in the engagement, who is knowing that they're looking for a ring, but also not quite ready to buy the ring because they haven't yet confirmed in their own minds and hearts that they're ready to get engaged. We also tested a bunch of other things like, I know she'll say yes, or I need a ring that fits my budget, all sorts of things. So you might ask, so what does the founder and executive do with the knowledge of that the most important and unmet need is, I knew I was ready to get engaged? Well, so what they did is they put up a web page and paid experts to write articles like, the 3 ways that you're ready to pop the question, and how to feel comfortable taking that next step in life and getting engaged. It was not branded. And at the very bottom, it said sponsored by. And they were able to see traffic to the site. And then from there, clicking on sponsored by, and they were able to see those people go to their site, the path that those people took, and the revenue in the pocket of the company. Net income went up 30% in 18 months. And that's just the directly transferable ones who came from the articles. And the reason it's so impactful is because they understood what the job was to be done of the buyer of the engagement ring. And anyway, there's a lot more that I can talk about there. I've been doing that work for 25 years, and you can learn a lot about it. And it's called Jobs to Be Done. The main person who talks about it is Anthony Ulwick. There were a number of articles in HBR, what customers want. Anyway, come to me. I'd be happy to tell you about it. And it's work that I continue to do because it's very much imbued with how people are showing up to questions like, am I ready to get engaged?
Awesome. So you can definitely help on the marketing side. I think it's important that people kind of know that. Kathy, what about you? Want to share your experiences with marketing?
Gosh, there's so much to talk about. How do we
Yeah.
do this in 5 minutes? Okay. And I am thinking of all of you and where you are. Let me just say that when you have a business, there are a number of ways you can choose to connect with your customers. So when I look at my journey, I was always a writer from a young person on. And I do ask you, I have a career path self-assessment. It's 11 pages of questions I wish someone had asked me 50 years ago. And if I had answered them, I wouldn't have made the mistakes I made. You can reach out to me. It's free. But when you look at everything you've always been, there's usually 5 or 6 roles or skills that you can leverage. So I was always a writer. I was always therapeutic in my mind. I always loved being on stage. I'm a singer. So I ignored all those things, right? But why I bring it up is when I left corporate life, I knew I wanted, there was therapy and then coaching. But what compelled me almost more than all of that was writing. So I became, in a beautiful, serendipitous way, a Forbes contributor. And what I found was this was 10 years ago, and posts went viral, like 8 million views. It's very hard to have that happen now. But on LinkedIn, and this is a tip, whenever there's a new tool that you're excited about, jump in there, be the first one. Like I was one of the first to write on LinkedIn's publishing platform. My God, that sounds like 100 years ago. Anyway, something went viral and I became there when they first started their app. Can you imagine? I mean, it sounds like the dinosaur era, but they named me professional women's expert and career expert. I got 1,000 followers a day for 3 years. And that is why I have 850,000 followers on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my happy place, cocktail party in the sky. Love it. So find the way you love to communicate. But what I want to say is writing and offering thought leadership has been the way I've gotten attention and gotten business, not advertising. But one thing I want to tell everybody, a marketing agency told me 8 years ago, I think you need to be careful if you're writing on Forbes only and you're not building your own brand. And I went, what are you talking about? But then somebody told me a few years later, God, I was on a call with a 1,000 women. And somebody said, yeah, that Forbes lady. And no one knew my name. Whoops. Okay. So what you want, I think, if you love to write and you love to communicate and thought leadership is how you want to attract, make sure that it is your brand that you are putting forward, not someone else's brand. But the other ways I think we need to think about marketing, and you're going to all choose the ways that are comfortable for you, or you're going to get help. I have to tell you, I was a marketing VP. It's in my blood. I love it. Some people hate it. Some people don't get it. I do think we need help with this desperately. Hire it. This is an urgent thing. And choosing the right partner. There's a lot of marketing charlatans. I know because I see them so many. But what I want to say also is the way I've gotten business, the marketing tools have been putting out free content that, and this is what I want to tell you, understand your niche incredibly deeply. And I have found that a deep and narrow niche is better than I'm a life coach and I cover everything. No, you don't. I'm sorry, but you don't. You don't know neurodiversity. Maybe you don't know divorce, health. You can't be a coach for everything today. That's not what people want. Know your niche, identify your niche, They call it the avatar. Some of these words are so cliche. Understand who is going to buy your product. Speak to that product. What is that product that's on the new on advertising constantly around the holidays? Seat liners, cup holders. I mean, they have incredible marketing, right? Because they know who their audience is and they speak to the pain point. But you need to know what the pain point is, and you need to give the language that articulates, if you go with me, if you go with my product, these are the outcomes. And you need to be incredibly clear why people should sign up with you or buy your product. The other tip I want to give you that's been really helpful, somebody once told me years ago, people will buy when there's urgency and scarcity. Holy crow, is this true? So for instance, if I'm launching my course, which I give my courses 3 times a year, like a master's course, there's always a timer on the sales page. I'm giving you my tips and tricks. I do a free webinar for people who are in that state of, I'm not sure. Who is Kathy? Do I want this? I give free. And a lot of people have said, no, don't give away free content. If your work isn't big enough that after 1 hour webinar, you don't have anything else, you don't truly have a business. I don't mean to sound snarky, but give the best training you can. And then share. This was hard for me. At the last slides are sharing about my courses. And for a lot of women, asking for what they want is very hard. Sales is very hard. We have to get over these hurdles, people. I view it as bringing yourself to market. No one's going to know about you and your great product if you're not having a way to share it widely. But the point is, I always have urgency. There's a timer, and the enrollment closes Friday at midnight. You won't believe how many people, the percentage of registrants, order the course 15 minutes before the timer is up at midnight. This is human nature. We're scared. We're not sure. And you want scarcity. This is not open forever. And, hopefully these aren't fake manipulative strategies. But if the third thing I want to say, or the fifth thing, or the 10th thing is ambassadors, networking. The best things that have ever happened in my career have been with the help of other people. So, David, even all of us, we were promoting your webinar, your training, as it should be. So you really want to find ambassadors who speak about your product, your service in a way that you can't even, because they've experienced it. So these are some key marketing steps. I hope that's helpful.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well said. For sure. For sure. For sure.
Thank you.
Yes. Ditto on all that. I'm bravo on all that. Jackie, what about you? I love how nobody has brought up TikTok or Instagram or I mean, we have LinkedIn, but Facebook. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a few thoughts. One is that the idea of really drilling into who you are first, right? Like we talked earlier about self, and that is, like, in my opinion, number one, right? Like identifying how you're showing up and then who you're showing up for. So in my journey, there was a lot of like, well, I'm a mentor, I'm a cheerleader, I did a whole journal exercise and whatnot. And it was really identifying, like, okay, what is my niche, right? Like, what is it that I'm really going to focus on? And there does need to be focus. There needs to be a very clear deliverable message. The other piece to that is, I don't have this background like Marcy and Kathy do. And it doesn't come naturally to me. In the world of human design and BG5, it's actually not anywhere in my design and we can see it in individuals' designs, people who would naturally be good at sales and people who need help selling, right? And so there is the analogy I like to use of those who are the artists that can self-promote and make money, And then those artists who are like, I don't get it. Why does my artwork not sell? And then the second they hire a gallery or an agent, it's like, boom. It's like the magic piece to the puzzle. And so the most important thing for me is that I am proud and know that I am a generalist. And when it comes to certain specific skill sets, I know what I have and what I don't have. And when I don't have it, I know to ask. I think one of the hardest things is making our asks. We offer ourselves as human beings. We love to help and sometimes overhelp. And so the opposite end of that is actually making the asks and asking for help. And it's hard sometimes for people. I know I struggled with it at times, and not only because it was how to ask, but it was also, I don't even know, like, where do I even start? And it's the idea of, okay, I'm gonna start and I'm just gonna talk to people, the networking piece that Kathy mentioned. It's the, okay, I'm just gonna start talking to people about what I'm doing, and then asking, and then finding the people or the Instagram personalities or the LinkedIn articles or the LinkedIn profiles where you're like, oh, this is what I want. And then I'm not going to be afraid to ask this person, can I get some of your time? So that I can ask you questions and pick your brain. And I would not have found my business strategist or David had I not asked, right? Like, my business strategist came from a mentor. David came from a friend. Like, if I didn't just ask, I would not have the momentum to keep building and then to then market. And even on, I mean, my Instagram has been paused since May. I had a Instagram social media person who asked me to coach, and her business blew up and she's on the move. And since then I haven't asked, right? Like, okay, who next? But I had found her because somebody else referred me over to her. And it's just a matter of asking and talking and networking and trying to understand what right now do I want to focus on. And then the last piece, which was interesting because yesterday there's a local pizza place on the corner down the street from us. We live in a very diverse neighborhood, and this couple's so sweet. They started a pizza business down the street, and the pizza's really good. And the wife, sadly, she got pepper sprayed by a random, like, he clearly has his issues, and pepper sprayed her and was laughing, and just, it was an awful moment. And it brought fear, and they weren't gonna, and the husband was like, nope, we've still got to show up and we got to do this. And so, and they have 3 kids. And so we said, okay, how do we as a community help? How do we come into this, right? And I realized, like, I have this amazing network of people. Our family friend has, like, I don't know, 350,000 followers and has a food lovers Instagram thing. So we said, Daniel, will you do this with us? Like, can we just have you showcase them so that we can help bring in more customers, right? And it's lifting each other up and making the connections. And then we sat, and my friend who's a neighbor who does my hair, and she's wonderful, and she's trying to grow her hair business. And we eventually got around and just sat and talked about, like, what data do you use? How do you know what's working and what's not working? And then he was, and how are you getting this paid for? And how are you making money off of this? And we created a moment that wasn't focused on how to market and sell. It was a fully different moment that we created that became that, and informational and helpful. And so I think it's just the opportunities to just open up and share and talk and ask questions. So.
Yes, you should never be afraid to ask questions, right? For sure. Excellent. Thank you. Agree. Thank you, Jackie. Another big topic that I think a lot of the people on the call face is like investors. I mean, it kind of relates to like, asking for money. Like that's hard. Maybe you can all share your experiences with. It could be maybe you've asked for money, maybe you received money, maybe you talk to people who maybe you coach people to ask other people for money, but just in general, that topic of like investors, that topic of like, I don't want to spend any of my own money. I want OPM, I want other people's money. And like, what is that? Like, how does that kind of manifest in your lives and in your businesses and in your, and in the services that you're kind of offering? I guess Jackie, we'll start with you.
Thank you. It's an easy one for me. I don't have investors, right? So I haven't hit that world yet. However, I do invest. So I'm actually on the other side. And so what I can share is that aside from having the two jobs, one of my visions or my manifests is to be able to be an angel investor in a lot of things that I am passionate about. And I am doing that at a scale that I can afford and can do for others right now. And so I have invested, and I think from that side to share, it really is. And recently I had a friend come to me, not knowing that I invest, just sharing, saying like, I'd like to walk through my pitch deck with you and get your insights on it. And I think the biggest thing for me when I'm receiving and anybody is asking, do you want to invest? Right? Is the idea like my business brain kicks in. So this I am skilled in, right? So it's like, what's the ROI? Like what terms are you giving me? Like what's your product? Do you have a very direct, focused vision on what it is that you're going to deliver and be passionate about? Do you know how you want to take this forward? Like what is your 1-year plan, your 3-year plan, your like what's your mid-range plan? Right. And so my business brain kicks in and says, okay, if I am going to invest, like I want to know that I'm investing in something that has thought, it has effort, that you are taking accountability, and that there's commitment to delivering. And so that's what I can share in the investing question.
Wow, Jackie, we have had a lot of investors on this call, but no one has said it exactly like that. That's I love that kind of what you're looking for. That's really important attributes for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Kathy, what about you?
What an interesting question. So I don't have, official investors myself either, but I would say over the years, what I've developed are relationships that help infuse money in a way that is different from my services. So, for instance, having a podcast, finding sponsors who will pay, or affiliates. I mention I've had some great affiliate relationships. I would also, and I do help not necessarily entrepreneurs, but I help corporate people ask for more money. It's often the same story, isn't it? We have to understand why someone should invest in us, why the ecosystem is going to be better because of it. It can't be just an emotional plea. I'm worth it. It's really a case, and it has to be a very well-formed case with data and metrics and outcomes, right? I find that in any partnership. But I do want to say two other interesting things. Apparently my website has high domain authority. So if you look at Career Coach Women in a Google search, it appears number 1, number 2 under the ads. So what happens is literally I'm pitched 100 times a week. Can we do something with you? Can we put a link on your website? And some will pay, and some even say we'll pay to be featured in Forbes, which Forbes, of course, does not allow. Some of it can be ridiculous, and some of it can be interesting that, oh, they're going to pay a lot to have a link embedded. What I would say, the way I've done it, and maybe I've left money on the table, I absolutely will never do it when I'm not aligned in every possible way with the product. And so I'd ask you to think about, what are your values? What is aligning with this third-party advertiser? What does that mean for you? Really think about, if I were to generate partners who would be my partners or investor, sponsor, or affiliates, how do I want them to be showing up? And, one example of this is, there's a lot of third-party advertising agencies that you can sign up for free. They set up ads on your site, and they can pay very well. Are you following me? Well, I decided to take a chance, although I am very protective of every site I have. And you choose the categories that you want or don't want advertising on. So I don't want it on entertainment. I don't want it on gambling, right? I'm very, very careful. And here I am supporting professional women's advancement. The first week, and I don't mean this to be offensive to anyone, I saw an ad for Chinese women. I'm like, I can't speak. You mean prostitution? So I almost had a heart attack. Wrote the agency, can I swear? Take the shit down now, this second, and repay me everything. So you understand? Are you following my story? We must be very, 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 very careful who we partner with, because it is your reputation. It is everything you stand for. So what's happened for me is, I'm uber careful. And I'm always on the lookout for people that I love and respect, and have delved into their work and would be proud for them to be a sponsor or an affiliate or a partner. Is this helpful? It's a little bit doom and gloom.
I think it's incredibly helpful, because I actually should have clarified that when I meant investors, it's not just, for a percentage of your company, but it is sponsors and affiliates and strategic partners and all sorts of different things. The people that are investing in you and in you as a being. So, like, yes, I think that was incredibly helpful. Thank you. Marcy, investors. You're mute again, Marcy. Hello.
Yeah, there are like 5 different perspectives on this, because I am looking for investors for the Show Up Institute that I'm the executive director of, which is a not-for-profit, a 2B. David, thanks for your help. I'm also very much accepting investments that people are making in showing up out there. For example, I've been on TV every other Saturday on a CBS station, and the team there was very much making an investment in getting the concept of showing up out there, regardless of what our financial exchange actually is. I mean, because they are affiliating their brand and their the host and all of that with the ideas. But just to kind of broaden that, there are 2 just important things that I want to say. I mean, coming from, I was an angel investor in Silicon Valley starting 20 years ago. I was a member of one of the largest angel investment networks on the planet. Classically, what we're looking for, definitely some of what Kathy said, but you really need to have a niche that you're starting with, where you can have the external data supporting. There's a need out there that's unmet. Here's the size of it. Here's the potential spend. Here's why my product or service is the exact perfect thing. Here's why it's differentiated. That's all kind of well-known practical stuff that you can look up. The concern with that is that it forces us to, in some cases, to be far too narrowly focused. And with showing up, I obviously have that challenge. What I've noticed is that the industry group that's showing up with tremendous demand and dollars is healthcare. Therapists, coaches, a very prominent and extremely large practice at Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York, and the leader of that, who is a partner in 5 other businesses, he's very interested in using showing up as a way to help his physicians be more effective, his staff be more effective, the physicians and staff together be more effective, because we show up in relation. Everything is in relation. So to ourselves, to others, to the world. And then also what we're going to measure is the patient outcome as a result of changing how the physicians show up to themselves, to their role, to the staff, and then of course how the staff passes that on through, because how we show up is contagious and goes through others and through society. So the final point I'm going to make on this is that there are a number of speeches that I've given for free to very large groups, such as like just 2 weeks ago to the International Society of General Semantics in Manhattan. And I do that for free because they're investing in the ideas, and they're investing in the interest of their group benefiting from the ideas. So I step into a lot of unpaid ways of getting my idea out there and partnering with people. And it's very much reciprocal. So I'm going to continue to give to them. They're going to continue to give to me. And the idea is that even though it might not be a classic investor writing a check for $1 million, there's really a lot of benefit that comes from that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, give before you get. That's a big entrepreneurial thing. I think the best piece of advice I've learned in terms of that is you have to touch someone 7 times before they're even gonna like begin to do anything with you, you know? And so and yeah, you may get a client after, you know, touching someone once, but think about the idea that you want to touch them 7 times, you know?
Can I comment on that, Dave? Because that's a really damn big deal.
Yeah.
People, when you truly feel someone human to human,
Yeah.
one touch is all you need.
Did we just freeze Marcy? Marcy just froze. Okay.
Marcy just
Marcy froze, but I think she's right. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's great to kind of, you know, land someone after one touch, but my point is it's okay to, Marcy, go for it. I think you're back.
If you want to be far more effective, what I would say is think about the depth and quality with which you're showing up, and you won't need the other 6 touches.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. You broke up a little bit, but we got your point for sure.
Can I add something to
Yeah,
that, though? In my world, readiness takes time. And people are on my mailing list. I used to have a 70,000 person mailing list. Now with how email strategy and laws and, you know, it shrunk a little bit, but people will say, I've been on your list 5 years and I'm finally ready. So the 7 is right when they're not in a state of readiness and they want to be. They have to feel it. They have to feel it. And then wham, you'll give them that perfect newsletter that there they are. They signed up. So I think it's a mix of both. Would you agree?
Agree. Yeah, totally. We are almost at time. Anybody have a question? There is a question in the chat that I want to ask. Anybody want to ask a live question to any of these ladies? If you are, just raise your hand or take yourself off mute. There is a question.
I'd like to.
Yeah, go for it. Please. Hey, Paul, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going? So, you know, I guess this kind of goes to something that Kathy and Marcy had said earlier. But, you know, does all marketing have to be paid? And I ask that because I have a client who had a really successful shop, and they had lines around the corner, lots of people who knew about them, but they had complained that it was so hard to get a local newspaper to do an article on them. And if they couldn't get coverage, how does my business with a narrow niche, you know, get it? You know, do I need to write articles and send them out to the sites that I want to be featured on, or do I write a synopsis? Do I just wait for them to find me? I mean, that doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
I would love to answer that as a media person. No, waiting is not what we want to do. Definitely write the pieces from different angles. But, you know, as someone who's approached another 100 times a week, hey, Kathy, would you cover this in Forbes? And it's, you know, something I would never cover. If you're serious about being covered, follow, you know, the top media sources that you think are right in your niche, follow what they're writing, follow three or 4 writers, and create a really powerful pitch about, and let me just be honest, media people are being pitched a million times by, you know, that my client has a new handbag line. My client has new widgets that are going to save the world. I think media folk are looking for a story, a human interest angle more than your product, your product, your product. So if you, oh, there you are, Paul.
Yeah,
If you can find a way to make it really timely and a human interest piece, I think that's going to get attention. The other thing I think that people don't do enough is start sharing your thought leadership. I'll talk about TikTok for 1 minute. I only have 3,500 people on it. And one of the reasons is it's very visual. It's, you know, we have 3 seconds to grab someone. And TikTok, for instance, the people, coaches who are doing amazing, maybe my colleagues here are, who have 2 million views, put out fantastic help in 3 minutes. And it really does move you forward in 3 minutes. I think what a lot of entrepreneurs are missing is that they're kind of invisible in that they're not sharing what their product can really do with testimonials. One of my friends bought kind of a weight loss program from a woman on Insta, and she has several ways she gets attention. Testimonials. She talks about outcomes. It's very, very strategic. So I think the answer to your question is you have to understand that there's a lot of people like you, even though we think we're the one in the million. And so you have to find a way to stand out and show that. Is that helpful?
yeah, I think so.
Good.
Awesome. Dylan, question. Make yourself off mute.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I appreciate hearing what everybody had to say. I'm just pretty much trying to get into, as like Jackie was saying, going through the COVID and what have you, finding some other career path for income. Because I've made my income as a union carpenter, and then for the last 25 years, and then have been through the ropes of I've been in positions where I'm the leader. You know what I mean? Everybody, like West Point did a new barracks for the first time in 60 years, and I was second in command. But I'm the one telling the guys what to do, you know, and they're asking me to do that. I'm telling them, I don't want that position. I don't want to have to deal with it. I don't make friends. Okay? So I'm in this process of trying to rebrand who I am so that I make friends, but also do it in a way that is financially benefit for me and potentially other people. But it's just a rebranding process that I'm going through. So technically, all I'm really trying to do is see if this information is going to somehow be emailed to me, from contacts, whatever have you, for the networking processes of what it would take to brand somebody who's, in my opinion, a born leader of whatever. Could be business, could be how a man should be a man properly, today's day and age. Whatever the case may be. I just need to figure that out because right now I'm 41 years old and I'm not doing the construction anymore. I don't need to. My home is paid for. I have other jobs that I can do as a person in society, regular. So now I need to be somebody different. Let's see who that is.
Yeah, well, Dylan, we appreciate the comment and the question. 2, I think you're probably speaking for a lot of people on this call and who will hear this. Everybody's going through, everybody at some point will go through some rebrand. Maybe it's forced or voluntary. But Jackie, that looks like it might be for you.
Yeah. I'm processing and reflecting on the information and trying to make sure I hear the question clearly. And I work with union carpenters day in and day out, so thank you, because like my guys in the field are the smartest, like, problem solvers that I have ever worked with. What I think I'm hearing is how to even kick off the journey of rebranding. Is that accurate, Dylan?
Yeah, it's all, you know what I mean? It's all accurate. What you would have to say, what the other lady would have to say. Forget exactly the one woman who, I'm sorry for that. But anyways, we were speaking earlier about, whatever and what have you. I forget exactly. I got lost with her name thing. Go ahead. But yeah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, and I said this earlier, which is the fact that you want to rebrand yourself or find more of yourself to show up differently than what you've been labeled or what work you've been doing, and unidentify from that, and be able to show up authentically you and say, okay, I'm now ready to show up differently, is awesome to have that awareness, and then to like want to move forward with that. And I think the thing that I will share here is then like, how do I do this? Like, where do I gather the knowledge of this? And I mean, Google's my number one friend, but it's how to brand myself. It's talking to other people to say, do you have a brand? Like, I am happy to refer the friend and expert who helped brand me. And I'm sure Kathy, Marcy has people to recommend as well, or others in the room. But I think when I'm stuck or lost, I search for the expert. So
that's what I'm trying to do.
So it's who then is, who are you going to resonate with, to partner with, to then build you in who you want to show up as in your brand. And it could be a team, and it could be a team of people, right?
Sure.
So there may be personal work, and then there may be the professional actual branding, marketing of how and what you're going to choose to do, and get clear on that.
Sure, because I think there's a couple of niches. It would be a branding of me who would be able to fill others' niches, is what my opinion on it is. You know what I mean? I've had experiences to where I now am in a position to where I could do things. That would be a niche for somebody, say, here or there. But it doesn't have to be me working with my hands, building it on the ground for you. It could be some other capacity. You know what I mean? Potentially, if it all works out properly.
Yeah, Dylan.
I have the capacity to change, I guess.
Yeah, Dylan. So just so you know, in about a week, we will kind of send the video with some, kind of takeaways, and we'll include Marcy, Jackie, and Kathy's information, kind of ways to get in touch with them, and probably ways that they can help you. Like, each of them could probably help you. So
Sure.
I think I kind of urge you to kind of at least kind of reach out to one or all of them.
Sure.
To kind of help you in your kind of rebranding, and we're all here to support you for sure. So
appreciate that.
So keep on keeping on. Antonia,
Thanks.
you have a question.
Well, first I want to thank everyone here today, David, for this really great information, and especially to the ladies who were so helpful. But just a little, Kathy, I love your voice. You have such a great voice. But
Appreciate that.
No problem. As a new company, an entrepreneur, and never doing this before and creating something that doesn't exist, I've had great support by the Gearharts, being able to be on radio. But I don't know where to start, because I have this website, and I like you said, you think you have the best idea, or like, I'm going to save the world, and I do have a story that's behind it, and I'm trying to grasp ways to get myself out there. Like, I've left messages for Fox News and things of that nature, but like I really don't know how to put myself out there and how to drive those sales on, I don't want to say a small budget, but I mean, I've invested in myself tremendously. But how else and where would I start, besides what I've already done? That's my question. And I know you've answered so many different ways. I feel very lost in how to get myself out there and I'm very brand new. It's only been a month, but again, if you Google, I was crossed, like 1,000 crosses come up, but if you Google exactly what I've created, no one knows it exists. So how do you get yourself out there? Sorry if it's a loaded
Do
question.
you want me to jump in, David?
Yeah, please.
So again, your products, Antonia, when you say crosses, they're religious crosses, and they would be worn, and you have other products
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
I'm sure our other two panelists can talk about this as well. I think the key thing is that you need to find the community around the world, if you can ship around the world or local, whatever you're wanting, that will be the perfect fit for that. So let's just do this. Who is your typical avatar? The person who would, and do you have a storefront or it's all online?
Yes, I have a website. And it
Website.
would be Christians, Catholics.
So one way to do it is build a mailing list and speak to this community. Give something to the people that sign up, they're 20% discount, or build some kind of Facebook group or a community where, because what I find is people that like your product are going to have a lot of things in common. Maybe they're wanting a support group to talk about where religion is today. Who knows? But what you're needing now is to, because it is a tight niche, you're needing to reach these people, and I think you can reach them internationally. Does this make sense so far, what I'm saying?
Yes, I have an Instagram page that I update often. I have a Facebook page, and at one point I had like a prayer night. I stopped doing that, but people did come, to talk and share stories and so on, like you said. I
Wonderful.
was doing that at one point.
Can I
Yeah,
add, I think the other, and then I'm sure you all have something to say. You'd probably want to partner with religious institutions and churches and events wherever you can. What you want to find are those ambassadors for you, those organizations that are going to love your product, and so their people are going to be interested by
yeah,
association. Does that make sense? Is that something
yeah.
you feel you can do?
Yeah, I reached out to churches and so on. Maybe that's something I need to focus on again.
And the final thing I would say is, because thought leadership and community has been a big thing that has attracted work for my business. If there's a way you can build a community of people that get things other than, I don't mean things, support, ideas, a feeling of belonging other than your products, what you're going to have is fans. And that's, I think, would be very helpful. Does anyone else? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jackie, Marcy, because we are out of time. Do you want to give your final thoughts? And if you have if you have a comment for Antonia, please include it as well. But we'll start with Marcy, then we'll go to Jackie, and then we'll finish up with Kathy, and we'll say goodbye. But yes, Marcy.
Yeah, just very briefly, the character of your cross is distinctive. And I would think that there's a specialized niche of people who want to wear something like that shows a uniqueness or distinction in their relationship, either with Jesus or with their religion or spirituality broadly. And so finding that, I think, is important. Otherwise, you're competing against every other somewhat similar religious symbol that's out there. So you need to differentiate and find the people who want what's unique about yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And so, Marcy, do you want to give some final thoughts just to everybody, kind of going into the new year?
Yeah, I mean, so going into the new year, perfect moment, we all step back, right? What do we want 2024 to be? How do we want it to show up to, with, and for us? And how do we want to show up to, with, and for it? And I would say that make the choice in a more conscious way. And the way to do that is to recognize the three roles that we're in and what it means. But by the way, part one of my book is downloadable for free on the website. I'd actually be happy to share the whole the book with everybody here. Just reach out to me, Marcy at Choose to Show Up, or just go to choosetoshow.com.
Amazing. Jackie, do you want to share some final thoughts?
Yeah, there's a quote that I live by, which is by Maya Angelou, and it's all great achievements require time. I think all of the entrepreneurship journey that each and every one of us are going through or have gone through and continue to go through, it's step by step, and some missteps and some 10 steps at one time, and just it takes time. And then you're like, oh, I'm where I'm wanting to be, and then there's something new, and then that takes time. And so just that reminder that all of this takes time in the way that is so unique for each and every one of us.
Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Kathy, final thoughts?
That was beautiful. Yeah, I would say this. Being an entrepreneur is a hero's journey. My friends, every one of you is a hero. And with the hero's journey, there's downsides, there's fear, there's risk, right? And this is not to pitch anything, but I would love you to check out my book, The Most Powerful You, around the 7 damaging power gaps and how we close them. But I'm going to leave you with the first one, which is not recognizing your special talents, abilities, and achievements. A staggering number of men and women don't recognize how they're unique, how they're special. And I'm going to leave you with this. Every one of us is like that thumbprint. Absolutely unlike anyone else. Even if your product is a widget and there's other widgets, millions of others, or my product is coaching and we already have 2 coaches, we're all different. The very first thing I'd ask you to think about is specifically, how are you special, and own that specialness and focus on that. And don't give up. On a coaching call yesterday, someone in a corporate situation, was crying. She's ready to bail. It's bad. And we talked about perseverance. She can't quite quit today. And you could tell she didn't want to persevere. I think every single entrepreneur has had this experience for a second, at least. I don't want to do this hard work, but I would say, there's so much gold in the perseverance if you can, because that's where the growth is. That's where you're going to test yourself and understand you are a hero and you are inspiring. So don't give up. Let's make 2024 amazing and persevere. And hopefully there's joy in the process of that. And check anything I've got. I got a lot of free stuff, kathycaprino.com. Check out the podcast, Finding Brave. Thanks to David, who trademarked Finding Brave. Please, and connect with me on LinkedIn. And if I can help, please, if I can help you.
100%. Ladies, thank you so much. I urge all of you that will be listening to this in the future, look into these ladies, look into what they can offer you for sure. They can help for sure. Especially all of you trying to achieve something now and in the new year. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We will see you at the last week of January. We'll send out some marketing information about what our topic is, but we have a whole slew of 12 new topics for 2024. So look out for that. Ladies, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Happy Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all that. And so praying for peace, health, happiness for all of you. So thank you. And see everybody. See you soon. Look out for
Thank you.
Thank you.